Katie, hi, welcome to the Female Startup Club podcast.
Hi, I'm so excited for this conversation. I've been looking forward to it all week. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited too. For everyone listening, we were just sharing some similarities in our stomach issues. I am a fellow stomach issue sufferer of all the things.
We need a name for this. Yeah. A fellow gut struggler.
Yeah, the gut strugglers. Oh my gosh, it's been a disaster, but I'm so excited to dig into your story and your brand. I think I'm going to learn a lot from you. I'm really excited. Do you want to give everyone listening a little bit of an introduction to who you are and what your brand is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Katie. I'm here in SoCal, and I run a company called BelliWelli. Briefly mentioned, we make brownie bars, snack bars, cookie bars, little square bars for anyone who knows the daily gut struggle. So that's bloating, IBS, food intolerances, just a sensitive stomach, a sensitive gut, SIBO, leaky gut. Our bars are for you. And even if you don't have stomach issues, i.e. my husband who co-founded the company with me, you love these little bars. I think he eats more than I do a day, actually.
Love that. Now, I know that you come from a background of dealing with stomach issues, and your health issues kind of started this idea, I guess, or this business, but I'd love to go back to, what you were up to in life before you started the business. Were you always destined to be an entrepreneur? What was going on? Give us the lay of the land.
100% no. And never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I'd be here running an IBS-friendly snacks CPG brand. So I was one of the odd few in life that knew at age 10 that I wanted to be a matchmaker, a professional matchmaker. I should have a really good reason for you at this point as to why, but I don't. I just knew I loved matching people. So in college, I interned for professional matchmakers in LA every summer. Luckily, I had very cool parents who just said, okay, this sounds totally sketchy, but you do you, and we're behind you. So I did that for 4 summers in LA, and then eventually walked away thinking, gosh, maybe this is not a very lucrative career path. And so I went to go work in tech. I went to go work at Hulu, actually, and still couldn't shake matchmaking. So found someone who was building a matchmaking startup, joined forces, loved every minute, scaled matchmaking into 15 US cities. And then eventually I fell into celebrity matchmaking. So I then became a celebrity matchmaker for years.
Oh my God, like who? Tell us.
I've signed my life away 10 times over, which was the worst part, right? Is that I never get to share all the crazy, cool stories. So did that for years. And then eventually the CEO of Match convinced me to come be the chief dating strategist at Match, which totally, I think will go down in my mind as the best job title ever. I still can't tell you exactly what it means, but I went over and studied dating apps and talked more about dating and relationships. And anyway, so no, never in my wildest dreams did I see myself here. And I can absolutely share more as to how dating turned into founding an IBS-friendly snack bar company. But yeah, you could say this was not part of the grand plan.
And so how does this start to enter the story? Like, what was happening in your personal life that started leading you towards BellyWelli?
Yeah. So about 6 years ago, I got a bout of food poisoning. And I know we were talking about stomach troubles here at the beginning of the call, but bout of food poisoning, and I'll spare you the TMI, but things never resolved themselves, right? So I got this food poisoning, my symptoms lingered. And so I did all the things you do to go try to fix said symptoms: colonoscopies, endoscopies, breath tests, diets, random probiotics. I was so desperate that I was ordering the supplements that take like 5 months to get to you on Amazon that have no brand name, right? I was trying everything, and I was grieving this pre-stomach problem life. And I could remember a day where I would eat mac and cheese and be fine, right? Hours later, developed these gut issues and became obsessed with trying to fix them. And in doing so, I started camping out in Facebook groups, which almost sounds old school at this point, but noticed that there was thousands of Facebook groups dedicated to buzzwords that had become important in my life. Things like IBS, SIBO, bloating, low FODMAP, reflux, cramping. And these words were just missing from the retail grocery store shelf. Yet everyone was talking about these words. And I think in retail, you often saw gut friendly or gut healthy, which was totally missing the boat. It wasn't speaking my language or the language of these thousands of other people I was meeting in these Facebook groups. So the other thing that happened at that point is I was sitting across from what should be some of the healthiest people in the world, celebrities, right? So For those that don't know, most celebrities have live-in chefs, live-in trainers, right? Live-in nutritionists, dietitians. And just like anything that starts impacting your life, you start talking about it with anyone that'll listen, which is what I did. And at the time, that happened to be the celebrity clients I was working with. And I couldn't believe how many of them could relate to this idea that they were living with daily gut issues. So I started to feel like, gosh, this feels like it's everyone. Could this be? Could we all just be living with gut issues and no one's talking about it out loud? And so still no aspiration of starting a company, but I started growing this huge online community on Facebook. And I found myself in tears one night because I missed chocolate chip cookies, which sounds so petty, but anyone listening that has gut issues will understand that you get to a point where you can't eat rice and vegetables one more time, right? You want the on the go and the sweet treat. And I was limiting my life. I noticed that I was starting to limit what I was doing because of my gut issues, which was so unlike me, right? We'd plan a trip and my first thought would be, well, what am I going to eat on the plane? And then what am I going to eat when I get there? Is the food going to be tough for me? And I was like, this is crazy. This is so not me. So my husband said, look, I'm going to make you the perfect gut-friendly chocolate chip cookie. I'm going to hire a food scientist and a dietitian over Zoom, and I'm going to work on this in our kitchen for 5 months. So he did. Worked on it for hours in our kitchen. He would Zoom with these professionals, and he eventually made me the perfect gut-friendly, IBS-friendly chocolate chip cookie.
I mean, husband of the year. Well, husband of the decade, rather.
This poor guy had no baking experience either. I mean, this guy is not a baker or a chef in the slightest.
At this point, is he baking it truly just for you, or has it already started to form a business idea in the background?
No, I'm like matchmaking it up and loving my job. It didn't occur to me to start a business. I just was fiercely curious about the space and becoming increasingly more obsessed the more I understood that it felt like it was everyone. And no, it was like this secret that everyone was unintentionally keeping. And actually, in fact, a moment or kind of a pivotal point in the story is I sent out a survey monkey to my personal network at one point. Just, again, fierce curiosity. And one of the questions I asked was, do you consider yourself an IBS sufferer, or do you suffer from daily IBS symptoms? And I sent it to personal network and ended up reaching 500 people between my husband and I. No affiliation with gut health or gut issues. And 76% of respondents said yes. And that blew my mind, right? Because not only does it mean that 75% of us have this, but it means we're not talking about it. Here, it turns out that 75% of my network is dealing with this and we're not having that conversation. It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. So love this chocolate chip cookie. I told Nick, hey, make 10 extra chocolate chip cookies. I want to share this with the community we built on Facebook.
How big's your community, by the way, just to interject?
Yeah, 300,000 people on Facebook.
Oh, okay. It's a really big community. It's huge. Okay.
Yep. So one thing, I'll back up. One thing I had done is I had started buying Facebook groups. So I had started a Facebook group and then I woke up one day and thought, I just want to make this community huge. Let me offer $500 and buy Facebook groups from some of these admins. And it worked.
Can you group Facebook groups together?
No. So I had to keep a lot of it separate. But what you can do is you can share links to your other groups within your groups, and then everyone joins the same groups.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. So you start buying the groups and then kind of like cross-marketing and just...
And it sounds crazy, but I still didn't have an aspiration of starting a company. It was just this call it a passion project. So he makes me these cookies. And by the way, where this starts to cross from a cookie to a bar, we almost have like this amazing identity crisis. We're not a bar, we're not a cookie, we're not a brownie, we're something. It's kind of all three. I started stuffing the cookies into bar molds that I had bought on Amazon so I could take them with me on trips or, out for a day. So I said, look, let's share these cookie bars with the community. Can you make 10 extra bars? Because we woke up to 800 orders. So we, at that point, convert our entire little LA apartment into a commercial kitchen. And I'm dead serious when I say like our entire little 700 square foot apartment into a commercial kitchen with one oven, shelving lining the whole thing, ingredient containers, tables. And Nick starts making thousands of bars every day. My dad's a pilot. He's flying in every 2 days to help him. UPS is coming to our house 6 times a day. And at 3 months in, right, we were doing, thousands of dollars worth of sales from the home kitchen. So at that point, that's when we made the decision to do what you do, which in our case was scale out of the kitchen. We can talk about everything that entails, but scale out of the kitchen into a co-packer, raise money, and create a real and thoughtful brand. So we did.
I love how you're like, I wasn't starting a business. Wake up one day, oh, I have a business. I've got 800 orders. I actually do have a business now because I've just accepted money from all these people. So when do you quit your job?
So we worked out of the home kitchen for months, and I was still full-time at Match as the chief dating strategist. So we, again, raised our first million. I decided we need to create a really thoughtful brand. So of course I called the lead designer at Match, who's designed some of the best dating apps in the world, and said, hey, can you build a brand that makes gut issues cool? So they designed the brand. We found a co-packing broker, a formulator, and launched the business on March 26th of last year. So we've been operating for just over a year. And I quit. So everyone at Match knew I was working on this, right? But I don't think everyone knew to what degree. So I was very nervous about it. And I quit my job. I gave my 2 weeks before we were launching BelliWelli. And Forbes was doing an article. So it was like, I knew it was going to be public that we'd raised money. So I went to my boss and I said, I was super nervous about the conversation. And I said, look, I've actually, this business I kept talking about has actually gotten bigger, and I've raised money, and now it's a thing, and I'm going to quit. And he said, you can quit if I can invest. And so he was one of our first investors. And actually many members of my team ended up writing checks into the business, their first angel check. So it was pretty special.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Wow.
Yeah. So the other piece of this is we launched the business from the hospital, and I can talk about that. But I literally worked the day I quit. Technically my last day was the day before BelliWelli launched on March 25th, and we launched March 26th.
And I read that you went into premature labor, and that's why you're in hospital the following day.
Yes. So I had made the decision. I think this is like another whole conversation that's really interesting nowadays, but fundraising while pregnant, right? How do you handle that? How do you navigate that? I don't know the answer, but I know that what I did is I didn't tell anyone. And I don't know if that was super intentional or if it was just this thing that all of a sudden I hadn't told anyone. So therefore it was too weird to tell someone. But anyways, I didn't tell anyone that I was pregnant while I was fundraising. I thought I had time, right? But I hit 6 months pregnant, just over 6 months pregnant. And we're launching the business the next day, quite literally. And I'm watching an episode of The Kardashians. I still blame The Kardashians because I've never watched the show ever. I watched an episode of The Kardashians and my water broke, and I was shocked, right? It was so early, right? It's almost 3 months early. And so go to the hospital. We give birth to little Veda. She's 2 pounds. So very, 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 very tall, like smaller than my hand. And then I had a severe complication. So I ended up hemorrhaging, and they ended up saving my life with the hysterectomy. 1 in a million complication no one saw coming. The kind of complication where they had me say goodbye to everyone in the operating room. So yeah, so they saved my life. We wake up, Veda's in the NICU, and we launched the business from the hospital bed the next day.
What?
Yeah. And the next day was weird in that we were writing investors an email saying, not only have I been pregnant, but premature baby, we're launching the business from the hospital. Met with nothing but support and kindness. And so I was there for a long time, and Veda was there for almost 3 months. So we ran the business from the hospital for a long time. And so the doctors and nurses were actually a huge part of our launch story in the end.
Oh my gosh, what a journey. There's so many things to unpack here. I don't even know where to start. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. So you launched the business. At this point, you've done like a pilot, I guess. Like you've done kind of a soft launch. You've launched to your community, and you're selling kind of from your apartment. Then you raise the $1 million, you find a co-packer, you launch the business to kind of like more officially. I know that you at some point changed your name from IB Simple to BelliWelli. Was that before or after launching?
Yeah, great question. So IB Simple was the kitchen brand. That's the easiest. So by the time we launched officially March 26th, our launch day, that was the first time anyone had heard the word BelliWelli.
Got it. And so what made you change the name, and how did you come up with BelliWelli? It's so cute. I love it.
I think it's a classic case of founder bias. And I think it's a great example of why it's important to have investors and advisors who've done it before around you. So I created this name, right? We were in a home kitchen. I had tunnel vision and was just focused on this IBS community. And So as we're kind of raising money and getting ready to launch, two of my favorite investors and advisors are the early Smart Suites team members. So they helped build the brand Smart Suites. And I think,
You know what's so funny? I actually just interviewed Tara before this.
oh my gosh. So this is Beth and Corianne.
That's such weird timing.
It is weird timing. Beth was number 2 at Smart Suites with Tara. And so
Yeah, she talks about Beth in the whole episode. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Beth is amazing. So it was Beth over Zoom that was like, so I think we should change the name. And I think at the time I was like, no, it's such a good name. IB Simple is an amazing name. And Beth and Corianne were great. It was just like, I think they brought it up a couple times, like, let's just talk about changing the name. And I just had this tunnel vision, right? Like, oh, I think this name is so amazing. Why would we ever change it? And eventually I came to my senses and we had a big brainstorm tech session. And I can't remember who cracked the name eventually, but thank goodness I changed the name.
Why were they saying that you should change the name?
IB Simple's limiting. I don't think it's very appealing, right? It's limiting, I think is the best way to put it. I don't know if you can build the fun brand that I think BelliWelli is today with the name IB Simple, right? So, and I think IB Simple was what we did with BelliWelli is we took a lot of risk, right? We made metallic packages. We really moved away from traditional health and wellness norms in terms of packaging, branding, name. And IB Simple was just safe and boring, in my opinion. So anyways, the importance of having smart people who've done it before and aren't afraid to challenge you was the takeaway there.
I'm such a fan of your brand, by the way. I mean, you can probably tell just by looking at me. I'm like pink and sparkly, all the things. So it resonates to me. It speaks to my soul. Oh my gosh.
Our COO is like the most logical person. And BelliWelli definitely represents my personality. And so he calls it the Katie Sparkle Pony brand, which I love because it totally is.
Love that. Yeah. Claiming that for sure. Let's talk about the launch of the official store from the hospital bed. What happens? How do you I imagine you've got this huge community. You're able to grow very organically through the community that you've spent like, potentially a year or 2 years or however many years building. What comes next to try and get out of the community that you've already built and beyond that?
So we really relied on the community only for the first couple months, which was amazing. Community, word of mouth. The advantage that we had, and I suppose continue to have, is there quite literally isn't anyone in the space, right? So normally in CPG, you're up against, I don't know, nowadays 10 plus brands, right, in your category. We didn't have anyone. So it was almost as if everyone had been waiting for us, right? In fact, most of what we heard initially was, where has this been? Why has no one ever said these words out loud? And I still don't know the answer. I mean, I think about that all the time. It's like, why was no one in the space? Or is it just that no one had thought to say people had talked about gut health, but no one had literally spoken to the 75% of us living with gut issues, which is almost a different conversation than just let's promote gut health or let's boost gut health. It's a different conversation. No one had that. So we really were able to rely on organic reach and growth for the first couple of months, which is great. And our Facebook community was a huge part of that.
Is it still a huge part of it?
Yes and no. It is in that I haven't put resources into growing that community much more. So the community is grown a bit, but it's not, the community doesn't have 1 million plus people in it today. But where the community absolutely impacts the business is they tend to dictate all of our decisions. And I don't throw that around as we talk to our community before making decisions. When I say that, we quite literally let them make decisions. A couple of really good examples. One recently, right? I mentioned that we are about to launch Peaches and Cream, right? That's an idea that they had and loved. So my belief has always been they're the ones we're making this for. It got to go with their suggestion. So they've chosen the ingredients in the product. They chose our tagline. I wanted to change our tagline, so I recently surveyed them. They all said no, so now we're not changing the tagline. So we literally let them decide.
Is the tagline "The Hot Girls Have IBS"?
Well, I wanted to put that on all of our retail packaging, and they were like, "Do not." So I didn't.
Oh, I love that.
I know, me too. But that's where I really tried to say, look, I mean, I'm part of the community, right? Because I live with gut issues, and that's why this works. But I'm one person. And so they literally do make decisions for the brand.
Just a side question that's not really related to the story. It's going back to the Facebook group, like business model. How do you buy a Facebook group in terms of like, how do you know how much to pay for a Facebook group?
This is like where there's no good answer. So it's not a thing is where I'll start. People often say, what's the process? There is none. So when I had this idea, I called our attorney and I said, could you give me an agreement? Or he laughed. He's like, that's not a thing. Like, I don't think you can even technically transfer ownership like that, but like, go take the risk, right? I mean, try it. So what I did, and it worked. I don't know if it's just because I have, the low FODMAP, IBS, gut friendly community is a really ethical community. But in my case, I reached out to admins of the groups and I just explained, I said, look, I'm creating a community. I'm fascinated by the space. I want to be a part of the community. I want to be a responsible member of the community. And this was before the brand too. So it was just all true. And I'd love to offer you X price to buy your group. I would use number of people in the group, right, to model out my decision. But I always spend somewhere between $500 and $1,000. And I would say, look, I'll PayPal you. You can add me as an admin. And once you receive the PayPal, remove yourself as admin. And it worked.
That's so cool. So interesting.
So I don't know. I don't know if you could replicate it in every industry, but in my case, it was amazing.
Fascinating. And like, how big was a group that you would pay for like $1,000 for?
Yeah, like 50,000. 50,000. There was one that was 85,000. I think that's I paid the most. I think I paid $1,100 for that.
And then did you like kind of pick a kind of one as the main one that was the most engaged or something, and then try to funnel more people to that?
No, because in my community, there are very different functions in each group. So, low FODMAP is a component of our bar in our story. So lots of low FODMAP specific groups. Sometimes there was just bloating specific groups. Sometimes there was SIBO specific groups. So sometimes there was overlap. Almost different communities within the same category and space.
Got it. Okay, cool. Right. Now I've got the Facebook thing down pat. I've learned that. I'm super fascinated by it. That's so cool. I've never had someone on the show kind of go down that pathway. Love it. I want to talk about the billboard and the merch. Tell us about the billboard and the merch.
So I would love to pretend this was some big strategic plan that I'd had from the beginning, but like so many things in a startup, it was a happy accident, and I'm totally happy to say that. But part of our mission here, and I knew from day one that the uphill battle we were going to have is normalizing the conversation around gut issues, right? Because no one had done it. And I'll never forget, another founder had told me when I was first starting the brand, no one is ever going to buy a food product that talks about IBS. I'd like to think that person's wrong, but that was always in my head, right? It was like, I've got to overcome that, right? Because people believe that. I'm TikTok obsessed, and we all know that there's this trend on TikTok of using the phrase gorgeous, gorgeous girls or hot girls have insert stigmatized topic, right? As like a means of reclaiming the space. So hot girls have anxiety, right? Gorgeous, gorgeous girls have anxiety. And it's a cool movement, right? That again, reclaims things that are stigmatized. And so I had never seen that done with gut issues very well. But gut talk and gut issues are a huge phenomena on TikTok too. So anyways, I was driving in the middle of LA one day and I thought, what if I put up a hot pink billboard that says hot girls have IBS as a means of just starting this conversation? And I felt like it was something, because IBS and hot girls is such a polarizing thing, right? I felt like it worked. And I also thought it was something someone might pull over and take a picture of and share with a friend. And that's where I think out of home works. I don't think out of home is very successful. If you're like, call 1-800-SMILE Club, right? And my biggest concern was that people were going to misinterpret the message. I didn't want people to think I literally meant hot girls, right, have IBS. I didn't want this to be exclusive by any means. But anyways, got home and I Googled billboard people. I called the first number that popped up, and it was two guys. And I said, hi guys, I'm Katie and I want to put up a billboard that says hot girls have IBS. And I think there was dead silence on the other side of the phone. And I think they said, have you ever put up a billboard before? And I was like, no, but that's what I want to do. And they said, okay, let's do it. And so I got a design together and I said, show me placements in LA. I don't want to, I think I initially told them, I don't want to spend more than $5,000. And they were both like, I think you're going to have to increase your budget. So then I bumped it up to $7,000. And that, for anyone listening, gets you like remnant billboards, space that no one wants to buy, and happens to be available for 30 to 60 days. So I said, show me the remnant billboard options. And they came back with a bunch of options, and our COO and I spent hours deciding which option to choose. We just got lucky and chose a placement that worked and happened to be freeway visible and then a part of LA that everyone drives by and you're stuck in traffic. And so we put up this billboard and people went crazy for it. Like so crazy that you drove by it most days and there was a line of people outside the billboard taking a photo or selfie in front of it. That's super cool. But what was cooler to me is that it had the intended effect. People were proud to share the billboard and say, "This is so me. This is so me." The number of times I heard, "This photo is in my group text right now with 3 of my friends." So it really had the intended effect. And so we started selling the merch. And to this day, we cannot keep the merch in stock. It's like the bane of our existence, which I love because not only is it a great business, right? But I love that it has made it okay to talk about gut issues. And we used IBS because IBS is a term that's recognizable, but we're more than an IBS brand. It just that fit within the campaign really well.
Off the back of like that as a campaign, what have you kind of done to continue the growth and the momentum, and what's kind of like in your marketing house at the moment?
So we've continued on the out of home path. So after LA, we did a Portland billboard, which is where I'm from. Same exact thing happened. Actually, in Portland, there was someone on Reddit found the billboard and arranged a meetup with a bunch of strangers in Portland to meet at the billboard who all had gut issues. Amazing.
Amazing. Shout out to that person.
Yeah, love that. And then we did it again in Times Square. And then we're back again in LA. So we only do one at a time. We've stuck with it within our budget. So we never spend a lot of money.
What's the Times Square budget?
Under $10,000 is what I'll say.
What? Wow.
But that required me to wake up at 4 a.m., sign a random piece that like I was waiting on it because you get these remnant spots. And you really only need 30 to 45 days to make an impression, right? Because it's enough time for everyone to see you on social and share it. So that's been our theory. So out of home continues. I mean, the Hot Girl IBS campaign specifically has definitely taken on a life of its own. For example, we just hosted a dinner with 2 of my favorite brands, Olipop and Doe, at a restaurant called Impasta in LA. And we called it the Hot Girls IBS dinner. And we had a bunch of creators and celebs to the dinner, and everyone was rocking Hot Girls IBS loud and proud, right? Which is just like taken on a life of its own. So
oh my God, I love it so much.
me too. Yeah. So the only problem I'll say is that, again, we're not just IBS. It's just that campaign resonates because most people know what IBS means. And if you have kind of a sensitive gut, you know that it's probably for you. But, we want to be mindful of not pigeonholing ourselves there too.
Totally. Reading through like your comments on Instagram and TikTok and things like that, the sheer amount of comments that you get, you can see how deeply engaged your community is. What are some of your key tips for keeping the community alive? Like, I know that it sounds kind of like it's just organic and it's just doing its own thing, but I'm sure that's not the case.
I'm crazy is the answer. I email 50 customers every night between 2 and 4 a.m. So I've never missed a day. So I choose 50 people. And
what?
Yeah.
Woman, when do you sleep?
Not yet, but so I'm a matchmaker at heart, right? I always just say like I'm a matchmaker who happens to be running a CB. So what I mean by that is I just like people and I just like hearing stories. So the way I've tried to approach this, or I shouldn't even say I have tried, like the way that what feels authentic to me is building this as if I'm doing it with like thousands of new friends by my side versus customers. And so if you're treating customers like friends, right, you don't just talk to them about BellyWelli, right? You get to know them as friends and people. And so that's what I try to do. So every night, right, I'll choose 50 people. I'll email them. I'll introduce myself, ask if I can hear their story, their gut health journey, anything they're willing to share. So it's like, I really do feel like I've made just like thousands of new friends that happen to be building the company with us. And I try to do 5 things a week for customers that have nothing to do with BellyWelli. So my first job ever was a cashier at Nordstrom. And one thing Nordstrom does that I'll never forget is, even back in the day, they're way ahead of their time thinking about it. You had this little personal book where you would write down customer details, things about their life. So, when you came back in as a customer and the cashier was like, "How's your son's, college applications going?" You felt really heard and seen. So I try to do that. I keep a huge spreadsheet to the best of my ability and try to keep up on not everyone's, but on lives. So for example, yesterday, one of our customers, her daughter was going into surgery. She was really worried about it. So we sent a little care package that had nothing to do with BelliWelli to their house. And so, yeah, I try to do as much of that as possible. I refuse to give up customer service or Instagram, which I need to eventually part with, because I like to have those interactions. So I send voice notes to everyone on Instagram. I'm always happy to pick up a phone and talk to a customer. So I don't know. Someday that won't be scalable, but right now it's what feels right and authentic.
That is so cool. So cool. And it's funny, like, people can look at a brand and be like, "Oh yeah, they just like popped and it was really organic," and it does have that feel, and there is so much organic to it, and you can see why with the campaign and the brand and everything, why it has. But really behind the scenes there is so much, going into building those relationships and caring about the people who are supporting you and your brand. That's really amazing. I feel like you're someone who's going to have more organic kind of grassroots, like, things that you've done, and I want to dig into more kind of things like this. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you're like, yes, I have also done X, Y, and Z?
This is just like a little non-traditional for most CPG, but doctors. So we have really gone hard into doctors' offices. We've made a very conscious decision not to create a food as medicine product, right? I think in our space, you could quite easily, and maybe there's even a case for doing this and another brand should do it. You could quite easily create like the Ensure of the space, right? Which is like a much more medicinal approach, right? I'm not saying Ensure is medicine, but what might sit with supplements, right? You could create that product. And we had a lot of pressure initially to do that. People really thought that was where we should go. And I just adamantly felt like that was not right for us. I even have taken this you could call it controversial and you could call it wrong. And maybe it is wrong, but I don't believe our place in the space is to be experts. I believe we can be good at surfacing expert information. And we do. I'd like to think we do that. Surfacing content from RDs and doctors and nutritionists. But I think our place is we are here with you. We're part of the girl gang, right? We speak your language and we're here to relate and like have that judgment-free, to foster that judgment-free zone in that conversation. And we're in this with you. So anyways, all that to say, I didn't expect us to be a fit for medicine. And it turns out doctors' offices love having shiny, pink, crazy looking things in their offices, right? Because they're fun and weird, and GI offices tend to be, I don't know, sterile and white and boring, right? And so it was this thing we stumbled into. So what I initially started doing was every Friday, I would Google GI doctors and I would send, with unprompted, no explanation, I would send 2 boxes of BellyWellis to GI offices every Friday, to 10 different GI offices every Friday. And then the next week I would call them and I would say, look, you probably got this shiny box of weird bars and you're probably thinking, what are these? I sent them their certified low FODMAP, which is recognized in the GI community, right, as something they generally put the low FODMAP diet is something they recommend to their patients. We're actually certified low FODMAP. We're the first snack bars making low FODMAP and gut issues cool to talk about. And so we really leaned into low FODMAP when it comes to that side of the business, and they loved it, right? They've never had anything like this. So these doctors' offices became totally addicted to carrying the bars. And then we started making little cards with special promo codes for each doctor that they could hand out to patients. So now we sit in tons and tons of GI offices around the country. And it's like this little kind of, I say secret, it's not actually a secret, but it's this kind of unknown piece of the business that drives a lot of revenue for us that most people don't know about. So yeah, we've seemed to crack the code on that thing that like an influencer, a creator, an average person is proud to pull out of their purse, but can also sit on a doctor's shelf and be legitimate in that context too.
Damn, that is so cool. Gosh, I'm so excited for all the future campaigns that we're going to see and like all the future stuff. Gosh.
Me too. I just have to think of it, but
Wow. Oh my goodness. Your brain is really cool. Very, very cool. Is there anything that you wish someone told you when you were just starting out?
Yeah, it's actually my favorite saying. And I actually did know this starting out, but I think this sounds very cynical and hard. Like I'll give a negative and a positive. My negative is like, you don't get points for effort, right? This is just a business where you just have to perform. And if you're not performing, it doesn't matter that you tried really hard, right? Again, I think we did a decent job of this, but like the community should be dictating every decision, in my opinion. Like I would just underscore that over and over again. It's like, that's what you're creating this for. You may think your ideas are amazing, right? It doesn't mean they are. And you've got to build this for people that really exist. That's like that's the thing I guess I try to remember. And it's hard, right? Like I'll think I have this genius idea and then I'll ask everyone and they're like, no, that's not interesting.
You missed the mark. You missed it.
Yeah. And you just realize you're one person, right? It's like, yeah, it's why TikTok's interesting. It's why videos go viral and you're like, why did that go viral?
So what does the future hold? What do you want to shout about? What's coming up that we can get excited about?
3 buckets. One is some upcoming fun collaborations. So we're going to be launching some new flavors with some cool folks in the space. One is coming up here very soon. Kendall, I don't know if I can chat about it, but 2 new flavors and 3 new products altogether. So new categories. Actually, and 4, we're going hard into retail this year. So retail will be a new exciting challenge. We've committed to being hot pink on the retail shelf. We can't figure out why hot pink doesn't exist on the retail shelf today. Maybe there's a good reason and we're really just making a huge mistake.
I reckon it's going to be a huge win.
We think that's our secret sauce, right?
I'm like a bowerbird. Pink things, I'm like, I'm attracted to it. I just flock to it.
We made the hot pink sparkliest package you've ever seen that will undoubtedly stand out at retail. And we're going hard into that and going to hope it works.
It's 100% going to work. I love that for you. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. What a cool year ahead.
Yeah. I mean, learning a lot and I don't know, 2 kids at the same time. And my husband and I are still in this together, right? So we're co-founders. So yeah, trying to figure it all out, how you juggle business, family, the whole shebang.
The whole shebang. I'm sure you're going to figure it out just fine. At the end of every episode, we ask a series of 6 quick questions, some of which we might have covered, but some of which we might not have, but I just ask the questions all the same. So question number 1 is, what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing every day?
I'm matching people with gut issues to products that help them, right? So it's still matchmaking at its core. It just, my why is solving my own pain problem or my own pain point, and hopefully doing it for lots of others too.
Super cool. Question number 2, what's been your favorite marketing moment so far? And if it's the billboard, let's go for second favorite.
Second favorite marketing moment. This sounds cheesy, but I think the launch of the actual brand. I was so proud of where the brand netted out. And I did not design the brand, right? I love to give credit to the people who did, which is the designers, Sean and Cynthia. I was so proud of that brand when we launched it. I thought it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And everyone told us not to launch this brand. They said they look like condom wrappers. And everyone loved the brand when we launched it. So for me, it was like, I knew it. It's amazing. I love it. I'm proud of that.
100%. Gosh, thank God you stuck with your gut. Lol. Question number 3, what's your go-to business resource if you kind of lean into podcasts, books, or newsletters?
It's 100% my founder group chat. So I have 4 founders in a text group chat, and I think we probably exchange upwards of 100 messages a day. And we're honest with each other, right? So it's a circle of trust where we can say, I'm having a bad sales day. What are you seeing on your end? There's no BS. There's no inflating the truth, right? Which happens in all industry, especially like on LinkedIn, right? It's a circle of trust and we all support each other. And founders, right? Advisors are great. Books are great. All of those are great resources. But when you're really building the business, other founders, I think, are your most valuable resource because they're literally going through it with you, making the same mistakes in real time or slightly ahead of you, slightly behind you. That's been life-saving or life-changing for me in this context.
Amen. Network is so important. The relationships you keep is so important. Question number 4 is, how do you win the day? What are your AM and PM rituals and habits that keep you feeling happy and successful and motivated?
I like to just work really hard. So that's a bad answer, but I'm up at 6. I have to interface with customers many, 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 many times in the day. For me, that's where I feel like I had a successful day. If I'm not talking to customers, I start to notice that I feel panicked and out of the loop and like I don't have a good pulse on the business. So I start the day interacting with customers and I end the day interacting with customers, having actual conversations with them. And I feel like I do a worse job of running the business if I skip those steps.
That's an interesting answer. I love that. It's the first time I've heard that on the show.
I'm sure I'm supposed to say meditate, right? Or take me time, but I don't, balancing the mom thing with the business thing is challenging, right? I'm super honest about the fact that I think that's really hard to do. So I should mention, leaving your computer for a minute and like running downstairs and seeing a child just smile is like really good quick perspective and gives you some like, gosh, that email or that problem I was worried about upstairs 5 minutes ago is not a big deal. Just saw, my cute, little toddler smile and tell me a funny joke. It's like an amazing reset.
Absolutely. Question number 5 is, what's been your biggest money mistake in the business and how much did it cost?
Yeah. Early on formulation. So it's like a good short story, but again, an example of where we leaned into community. So when we first launched the product, we launched it with stevia, thinking that stevia is low FODMAP, right? Stevia is, our brand goals are low FODMAP, gluten-free, vegan, no sugar, alcohols, fiber, probiotics. So it fit those parameters. We launched the product with stevia and our community hated it. I mean, they told us loud and clear, we hate stevia. We don't want to buy anything with stevia in it. So made a really difficult decision from the hospital to scrap it and reformulate without stevia very early in the business. And so it took me like 5 days of getting that feedback and those comments in to make the decision. It just, like I said, I thought I don't mind stevia. So it was truly a matter of leaning into what the community told me they cared about. So we tossed product and reformulated without stevia, and the rest is history. People loved it.
Oh my gosh. What was the turnaround time there, like to reformulate?
We reformulated at production, which 100 out of 100 don't recommend. And our formulator was really amazing, but it was like chaotic phone calls, me from a hospital bed calling her, like, how does it taste? Her sending products to me in an Uber to the hospital. It was in the height of COVID, so my husband having to sneak them into the hospital room so I could taste them. It was horrible, but we turned it around within like 2 days. So, I mean, it sounds really easy just to take stevia out and replace it with something else. Most people, right, who run a CPG business know that's not that easy when you're making something at scale like that in a co-packer. So horrible, hard, but worth it. And we lost money doing it for sure.
Are you able to share like a figure amount of how much product you would have had to have gotten rid of?
It was in the we were making smaller runs at that point. Now we make runs of 100,000 units, but at the and this was literally the month it launched, we were making runs of like 20 to 30,000 units of product. Still a lot of product, but not what it would be today, which would be catastrophic. At the time, it felt huge. Yeah, it's still a lot.
Feels huge to me.
Incredibly risky decision, right? It was our launch month, right? We were launching that month. So it felt like the worst decision to be making, but looking back, I mean, it was clearly so right? It was like literally as soon as stevia was out of the bars, people went crazy for them.
Wow, that's so interesting. Gosh. And last question number 6 is, what is just a crazy story you can share, good, bad, or otherwise, from your journey in business so far?
I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times, but like just what comes to mind. Well, one thing comes to mind, and I sadly can't share much about it, but we filmed a TV show the week we got out of the hospital, and that was a crazy journey in itself. But can't talk about said TV show because it hasn't aired yet. But anyway, so that comes to mind. But I mean, just launching a business from the hospital with all the NICU doctors and nurses and was just an insane situation. Very cool looking back, right? I mean, like the first onesie our baby ever wore was a BelliWelli onesie. I mean, this like poor baby is like a BelliWelli baby. So that will go down as wild in the best and worst ways. I mean, my memory of like about to be put under to get this emergency surgery was like telling them that we had to launch the business the next day. It was totally chaotic.
They're like, yeah, sure. That's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, they were like, and then I literally woke up and I was like, I need to see my baby. Is she okay? She's okay. Okay, I need my laptop. They probably still think I'm totally like crazy, but it was what it was.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all like your biggest cheerleaders.
They're still some of our best customers.
So they're since inception.
Yeah, they're still some of literally our best customers, which is cool.
Oh my gosh, Katie, you are crazy and so awesome. And I have loved this chat and everything you're doing. This is so cool. This was awesome. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
I really appreciate you having me. It's been so much fun chatting with you and reliving all this for a minute. You don't do enough of this when you're running it, right? It's just taking that moment to reflect on, even though it's been a very short journey, the fun is in kind of, examining the journey once in a while and saying, gosh, wow, we've got this far. Okay, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. Let's do it again. So thank you.